Got a question from Joseph here. Can I buy property using my super if I cannot borrow in my own name? And if I can, is that something that Ripehouse can support? So thanks for that question, Joseph. So firstly, we absolutely help. Probably about 20 to 25% of our clients' purchases these days are actually in their self-managed super fund. So it's definitely something that we do, and it's getting more and more popular, I would say, each and every month here at Ripehouse. In terms of can you buy more property if you've reached your borrowing capacity in your own name? So you actually can. So what a lot of people aren't aware of is you can have run out or have limited servicing in your own name, but the borrowing in your super is completely separate from in your own name. So because keeping in mind, they're running it off the servicing from the super contributions that are coming through. The debts and liabilities in your name are separate. And then also the rental income coming through on a property. So to give you an example, in most cases, it's about 8 to 9 times your income is what the bank will allow you to earn. So if you've got a couple, and let's just say they're bringing in about $180,000 per annum in their income across the household, so they're getting about 11.5% of income come through. So they've got about 20,000 come through. They've then maybe got, or they might be interested in purchasing a $500,000 property that's coming in at a $25,000 return. The bank's only going to assess 80% of that, and then we want to put in their $2,700. So, oops, not that. We'll just say $4,700. And then if we times that by, let's just say 8.5, the bank's going to allow them to borrow around about $350,000. They're then going to have to front up the deposit amount. Normally you're going 20% in super, and then you've got to pay your stamp duty and buying costs. So for most people, I just trying to advise you, you probably need about a bare minimum of about $150,000 in your super, and that can be combined. It doesn't have to be individually. So if you've got 100, your partner's got 50, that works. But it is definitely separate from your borrowing in your own name. There are costs associated though with you've got to set up your self-managed super fund. That's going to be dependent on the accountant, financial planner, etc. In most cases, it's probably going to cost you about $5,000 to set up. And that's probably the part where most people get scared off when it comes to setting up a self-managed super fund, because they might get some, I would say, poorly worded advice from somebody, whether it be a friend, family member, financial planner, whoever it might be, where that $5,000 is seen as a big hit. But one thing to keep in mind, if you've got $150,000 in your super, it's highly likely your super fund, the average is about a 1.52% fee each and every year. So they're probably taking already around about a $2,000 to $3,000 fee per annum. And that scales up as time goes on. So if you've even got more money in your super, if you've got $450,000 in your super and you're in a fund that's actually charging you 2%, you're potentially paying $9,000 per annum in fees. So for me personally, I'm a huge fan of investing in property, or even just investing in yourself through super, because firstly, you can control your cost base. So yes, it's going to cost you maybe $5,000 or so to set up, and if you got to do your yearly auditing, which can cost you $500 to $2,000, depending on who you know in the space. But for me, and a big one is as a control freak, self-admitted control freak, I like to be in control of where my money's going. So Australian Super, the country's largest superannuation fund, has been forced to write off more than $1.1 billion in equity and loans tied to an American online education startup, marketing as it's the single worst investment in venture capital. So these guys are essentially messing about with other people's money. The really hard thing for managed funds to compete with in super, and when it comes to property, is that ability to leverage, because no super fund out there is going out and investing with leverage. So when they're investing, as an example here, they get $100,000. They're taking your money and they're essentially making a $100,000 investment. So if they get a 10% return, they're getting $10,000, which is essentially a 10% return on your capital. Now, in terms of just long-term averages, an average super fund returns 7.62% per annum before fees. Now, the window for fees is about 1 to 2%. The average is 1.52. So that is before fees. Your average 3 or 4 bedroom home in Australia is close to 7.3% over the last 60 years. So if we took those away, we're pretty close in terms of performance. But where you get that significant, ability to multiply your returns is through that leverage. And most people in super are going to leverage at about 70 to 80% in most instances. So they're not going to come in with 100, but this is an example. They'll come in with $100,000. They'll get their 80% loan. They've taken on $400,000 of debt, but their total investment at this point is $500,000. So if they get the same return as that managed fund, which they're probably getting in point A, they're going to essentially 5 times the performance of point A. Now, that's not always going to be the case because you're going to have other costs associated. But when I've ran a lot of modeling for myself and for clients through the self-managed super fund space, the returns more than double a managed fund. Like it's for me, I can't fathom why people would want to put their money in a managed fund. The only real exception to that rule would be you might want to leave a tiny bit of money. It could be just a few $1,000s and the bare minimum contributions, which could be as low as $500 up to $2,000 per annum, because your managed funds do offer good health or life insurance policies. They buy them in bulk, so it's quite cost effective to keep that active rather than buy one yourself. But other than that, there's not really any reason, in my opinion, to be in a managed fund. If you wanted to diversify, just invest in the ASX, invest in Vanguard, invest in something else. Like, I just think those managed funds in general just perform really, really, really poorly. Pretty passionate about that, and property cycles, if you guys can't tell as well. Now, the other thing, and I guess if you have any questions as well on the self-managed super fund, feel free to just reach out to the team at Ripehouse. You can either call the office or email in. Nick might send an email out tomorrow, just if people have any questions from today's call, and we'll get back to you on that one as well.